Rain lashed against the windows, wind howled like a banshee. Thomas, soaked to the bone, dragged his suitcase into the dilapidated hotel. The flickering neon sign cast an eerie glow on the deserted street. He shivered, not entirely from the cold. This place had an unsettling aura. Inside, the air hung heavy, thick with the smell of damp and decay.
Hello, is anyone here?
A solitary figure hunched behind the front desk, face obscured by a wide-brimmed hat. The figure didn't look up.
Room 211.
It rasped, sliding a key across the counter. Thomas hesitated, a prickle of unease crawling up his spine. This place felt wrong, but the storm raged outside, and he was exhausted. He took the key and trudged up the creaking stairs, each step echoing in the oppressive silence. His room was small, dusty, and cold. The wallpaper peeled at the edges, revealing faded floral patterns from a bygone era. Outside, the wind howled, rattling the window panes. Thomas tried to ignore the growing sense of dread that had settled in his stomach. He just needed to rest. Sleep wouldn't come. Every creak of the floorboards, every sigh of the wind against the window sent shivers down Thomas's spine. Hours crawled by. He lay in bed, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling. Just as he was about to drift off, a noise jolted him awake. It was a muffled thump coming from the room next door, room 209. He sat up, listening intently. Silence. He tried to dismiss it as his imagination, but then he heard it again. A scraping sound, like furniture being dragged across the floor. He got out of bed and pressed his ear against the wall. The sounds were clearer now, whispers too low to discern. A cold sweat broke out on his skin. Who else was in this desolate place?
What is that? Who could be in there?
He considered for a moment, then grabbed his jacket and went downstairs. The figure behind the desk remained unchanged, still shrouded in shadow.
Excuse me, but I think I hear someone in the room next door.
The figure slowly lifted its head, revealing a face etched with wrinkles and shadowed by the hat.
Room 209, that room, it's unoccupied.
Unoccupied, but I definitely heard noises, voices.
The figure chuckled, a dry, brittle sound that sent chills down Thomas's spine.
This old building, it has its secrets. Best not to pry.
Thomas wanted to argue, to demand an explanation. But something in the figure's cold, calculating gaze made him stop short. He retreated to his room, the weight of the figure's words heavy on his chest. Back in his room, he tried to ignore the sounds coming from room 209, but the whispers seemed louder now, more insistent. He could make out a word here and there, fragments of sentences that sent shivers down his spine, words like trapped and help me. Sleep was impossible. He paced his room, torn between fear and an unsettling curiosity.
What is going on here? Should I investigate or just leave?
The night stretched on, filled with whispers and unanswered questions. The first rays of dawn pierced through the gaps in the curtains, casting long, eerie shadows across the room. Exhausted but unable to sleep, Thomas made a decision.
I have to know what's in room 209.
He crept down the hallway, each step echoing in the unsettling silence. The door to room 209 stood slightly ajar. He hesitated, his hand hovering over the handle. A wave of icy air washed over him, carrying the faint scent of decay. Taking a deep breath, he pushed the door open. The room was plunged in darkness, the curtains drawn tight. A thick layer of dust covered everything, undisturbed for what seemed like decades. He flipped the light switch. Nothing. The bulb had long since burned out. As his eyes adjusted to the gloom, he noticed an open suitcase lying on the bed. Clothes spilled out, seemingly untouched for years. And in the corner, facing the wall, sat a lone chair. A chill snaked down Thomas's spine. He approached the suitcase cautiously, his heart pounding in his chest. The clothes inside were old-fashioned, styles from a bygone era. He reached out to touch a faded silk scarf, but a sudden noise made him jump back. It was the scraping sound again, coming from behind the chair in the corner. He took a tentative step closer, his breath catching in his throat. As he peered around the chair, he saw something that made his blood run cold. Scratched into the dusty floorboards, a message. It was barely visible in the dim light, but the words were unmistakable.
Don't trust them.
The handwriting was shaky, desperate. A wave of dizziness washed over him. He stumbled back, bumping into the wall. He wasn't alone. Someone or something had been trapped in this room, and it was trying to warn him. As he turned to flee, a cold hand clamped down on his shoulder. He spun around, a scream dying in his throat. Standing before him, shrouded in shadows, was the figure from the front desk. But something was different. The figure's eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and a cruel smile played on its lips.
Curious, aren't you? But some secrets are best left buried.
Thomas tried to pull away, but the grip on his shoulder tightened. He caught a glimpse of something sharp and metallic glinting in the figure's hand. Fear lent him strength. He shoved the figure back with all his might and scrambled towards the door. He burst out of the room and into the hallway, his heart pounding in his chest. He didn't look back, didn't dare to see if the figure was following. He raced down the stairs, the figure's raspy laughter echoing behind him. He threw open the front door of the hotel and stumbled out into the daylight. The storm had passed, leaving behind a clear, crisp morning. He gasped for breath, his lungs burning. He had escaped. But even as he stumbled away from the dilapidated building, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. He could still hear the figure's laughter, faint but distinct, whispering on the wind. He knew with chilling certainty that he would never truly escape the horrors of room 209. The hotel loomed behind him, a sinister silhouette against the brightening sky, and as he disappeared into the bustling city streets, a single thought echoed in his mind.
Some secrets are best left undisturbed, because sometimes the things we choose to ignore have a way of finding us.